So we've been waiting for developments in the Fulton County case into election tampering. Donald Trump appears, from what the public has seen, appears to have attempted to nullify the votes of Georgia voters by pressuring officials in Georgia to just find him enough votes, to win him that state, that crucial state that would have affected whether or not he became president, in conjunction with 7 other states that he tried to tamper with, allegedly. Well, now we have some developments there. Fani Willis has been doing a diligent job of investigating this, and Beau of the Fifth Column yesterday gave a great summary of what we were looking for today. Let's listen to that first.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So today we are going to talk about Georgia, because for a whole lot of people, Georgia's going to be on their mind. Either today or tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this, Tuesday, there will be a proceeding. And that proceeding will give us a pretty good indication, should give us a pretty good indication, of how things will advance in Georgia and what is going to happen in relation to that long-running investigation into the alleged election interference by Trump and team.
Part of the reason, in particular, that I am so excited about these cases is they are state-level cases. Just a quick recap. If Trump is charged for state-level crimes, there is not a presidential pardon that can save him. And as crazy as that might seem to people to think, why would Joe Biden pardon Donald Trump? Boy, let me tell you. Richard Nixon got pardoned. Richard effing Nixon got a pardon. The excuse is always to have peace in the country, to move on. George W. Bush wasn't even investigated. Barack Obama said that his administration had no interest in these things, and that he would put no pressure on anybody to do anything regarding George W. Bush. George W. Bush lied to the American people, got 7,000 American service members killed, and 8,000 contractors killed, an unknown number of Iraqis killed, people in the Middle East, frankly, with a war that lasted for 2 decades. That was started on a lie, a conscious lie. As in, he knew that what he was saying was the exact opposite of true. I do not trust the federal government to handle these matters because they have a long history of letting the bad guys go. So I'm excited to see state-level investigations. Keep it going, Beau.
There's a hearing, and this hearing will determine whether or not the special grand jury report, special purpose grand jury report, becomes public. This report makes recommendations, doesn't issue an indictment. The DA, she's had it for 2 weeks, so she's probably already made up her mind. During this proceeding, the expectation is that she's going to speak. From what she says, we might get a really clear picture of what can happen, even if the report isn't released. If it is released, we'll get a good look. Right now, what most people know is that phone call. Find me the votes. That phone call.
I have been of the belief, and I maintain this, that phone call by itself is enough for a conviction. just proving that that phone call did indeed happen and the people on either end of the line were indeed who they said they were, just that, the words that were played on the national news, just that is enough for a conviction and should have been pursued from the beginning. I'm delighted that D.A. Willis is going after it like she is.
Majority of people watching this channel have their opinion of what that is.
Case in point.
And it is Trump asking for votes, asking them to interfere with the vote count.
And what I would be looking for the record, in a trial just based around that phone call. It's not, they've gone to greater lengths, apparently, but they interviewed over 75 people. But what I would be looking for is proof that that phone call did indeed happen. People on either end of the line were indeed the people who it appears to be. Or prove that somehow there was more to that call that makes it clear that Trump was not pressuring. I don't know how you would, but was not pressuring Georgia officials to overturn the election. That would be a hell of a twist that was left out of that phone call if that was the case. But let's hear.
At the bare minimum, interfering with an election officer in the course of their duties. That's how most people see it. We don't know what was uncovered during the investigation. There may be exculpatory evidence. There may not be. There may be stuff that's even worse. We don't know. They have been very quiet. But they're done now. Maybe we get a glimpse of it very soon. If not, we might be able to make some inferences based on how the prosecution handles the hearing. It is worth noting that Trump's team will not be there. They have taken the stance that, they weren't asked to participate in this at any point in time, so they don't need to be there today.
They also don't have much to gain by being there. It's whatever you think of them. I think it's a savvy, at least political move. And to be fair, I'm not an attorney. I'm viewing this as politics. The savvy political move not to draw more attention to this particular incident. They are hoping that the standard issue Democrat playbook happens, where a Democrat DA does the investigation, makes a lot of noise, and then doesn't have the guts to go through with it. So as little attention as they can draw is probably wise on their part.
Okay. The big question that people have about this is, well, what comes after this? Either everything or nothing. This is the end of the investigation process by most conceivable scenarios. Odds are that the next real developments will be this case going away or indictments. This is the find out portion of the proceedings. I'm talking about us being able to find out what's going on.
Yeah, but also a little bit F around and.
There are a lot of expectations, but until we see the report, they're very speculative. So we're going to have to wait and see that. It will remain a mystery. Aside from the legal aspects, you have to consider the political aspects.
Fair.
If this occurs, if Trump and team is indicted or there are charges related to this that eventually may end up at Trump's door, it's obviously big news. And it is going to throw a lot of dominant headlines right now into the recycling bin of the news cycle. They'll be gone.
Understatement of the century. Certainly, Joe Biden does not have the ability to press a button and either make this thing happen or not. He's not involved in any way. But man, that guy's got to be hoping that the announcement of indictments is made, and that they are made at a time when he himself is going through some shenanigans, like, say, his own documents scandal, which is, in comparison to Trump, nothing. But nonetheless, you gotta appreciate that Biden is getting a little bit of the Trump effect, where there's so much going against this guy that one thing gets washed away by the wave of news about the next.
It's also worth noting that if Trump is indicted, it'll be the first time that a former president's been indicted. It will undoubtedly cause a disruption within the GOP. What is interesting about this is all occurring at the state level. And many of the mechanisms that might want to protect the institution of the presidency, yeah, those exist in D.C., not in Atlanta.
Thank God.
So there's probably a better shot of something moving forward at a state level case. And we're going to get to see what happens today, at least hopefully get a better picture. Now, it's also worth noting that this DA's office, that they've been pretty quiet. They're not telegraphing a lot of their moves. So if the report remains sealed and we don't get to see it, and they're careful in their arguments, then we may walk away knowing no more than we know right now.
Fair enough, Beau. The question is, why? Why are they so quiet? You have the legitimate reason for this. I'll go a little bit bigger here for a minute. You have the legitimate reason for this, and the reality. Legitimate reason, when it comes to political scandals, legitimate reason is that they don't want to spoil the prosecution. They don't want the public to form an opinion before a jury has even been selected for the actual trial. In fact, that can spoil the actual trial, because the defendant can then say, look, all this information about the case was released before we had a chance to defend ourselves in court. It means people went into that trial having made up their minds already. Judge, you got to throw it out. You got to declare a mistrial. The actual reason when it comes to politics, and let me be clear, there's no book somewhere that has this written down. This is my opinion based on watching the nightmare that is the American judicial system for 36 years. The actual reason, in my opinion, is that they want the story to die down so that when they finally say, we're not going to do anything, it's not as fresh in people's minds. Either people have forgotten about it completely, people have stopped looking for updates on it, and they don't notice when that announcement finally happens, or they can't quite remember the details. They can't quite remember how bad X or Y was. And so they don't complain as much. They don't yell at the prosecutor who failed to prosecute as much. That's what normally happens. I think Fani Willis, just based on what I've seen of her, is cut from a different cloth. I think she is actually interested in justice. So Beau was saying, let's look out for Tuesday's announcement. Well, Tuesday's announcement has come. Are they going to release the information? The special grand jury report? The judge is still deciding, they say, but Willis said they should not. Ooh, boy. Here it is. Article on CNN. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. There we are. Fani Willis suggested Tuesday that the special grand jury investigating Donald Trump and his allies' efforts to upend the 2020 election in Georgia, aka election tampering, has recommended multiple indictments and said that her decision on whether or not to bring charges is imminent. So first of all, she confirms the special grand jury recommended multiple indictments, more than one people getting tried for this, in other words. That's what the special grand jury recommended. That we know. If we're looking for a summary of the special grand jury report, there it is. They have recommended that multiple people get charged with crimes for this incident. That is huge. Don't forget that in all of this. Second, she says a decision on whether to bring charges is imminent. Now, that's a new development. That means she is going to decide whether or not to follow the recommendation of the special grand jury soon. I want to be clear. Soon, in terms of DA talk, is that could be tomorrow. That could be at the end of March. In short, it means A, I don't want to be rushed, and B, if and when I go through with this, I don't want my trial spoiled by a bunch of gossiping Jeffs. Gossiping Jeffs. Good Lord. Gossiping Garys. There we go. At a hearing in Atlanta on whether to publicly release the special grand jury report, Willis, a Democrat, said she opposes making it public at the moment, citing her ongoing deliberations on charges. Remember, it's not her decision, it's a judge's decision. Normally, I am not for, just as a general rule, I am not for keeping things secret. In the criminal justice process, there's a good reason for it. I think that reason is abused, but there is a good reason. Decisions are imminent, Willis told Judge Robert McBurney. It's up to Robert McBurney whether or not to make this report public. The people who are going to be pushing for it, as in the moneyed interests that are going to be pushing for it, that's the media. They're going to try like heck to get this report given to the people. They will be doing all the filing and yada, yada, yada to try to make it happen. As they should. As they should. That's their purpose. Don't hate on the media for pushing for that, because that, to keep this country afloat, that is the pressure that's got to be pushing this way so that this way doesn't topple over too much. You can't keep things secret if they're not supposed to be. But should the judge actually go for that? Honest to God, it's a tough call. I don't blame him either way. If I'm put on the spot, I would say probably not. Probably the judge should make the theoretical prosecution as clean of a trial as it can be, so that there is no wiggle room for getting out of this. By wiggle room, I mean something other than just the facts of what happened, resulting in or affecting the results of the trial. CNN article continues, we want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. Well, there we go. And we think for future defendants, to be treated fairly, it's not appropriate at this time to have the report released, Willis said. The special grand jury, barred from issuing indictments, penned the highly anticipated final report as a culmination of its 7 months of work, which included interviewing witnesses from Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to former Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani. I want to go back to her quote just then. We think for future defendants to be treated fairly. Not appropriate at this time to have this report released. Interesting. So she is suggesting there that the hypothetical case she may choose to bring would involve multiple defendants. She could just be speaking in general terms. Let me be clear, I'm just reading tea leaves. But to me, that does sound like she is talking about the conspiracy crew. Trump, Giuliani himself, he's got his hands all over everything shady Trump did in 2020. Lindsey Graham. Anybody involved in that super corrupt appearing phone call. Yeah, I again want to be clear though. We are looking at a couple of statements that Fani Willis issued today suggesting that this not be released. Its final report is likely to include some summary of the panel's investigative work, as well as any recommendations for indictments and the alleged conduct that led the panel to its conclusions. So what are we going to see? Number one, bear in mind that this is not a small document. With the amount of interviews they did, especially to end in a recommendation that a former president's, at the very least, henchman get indicted. That's a weighty document that they've got to look over. Thing number two, the judge said he would not make the decision at the bench. In other words, they were going to end the court for the day. He was going to go back to his chambers, think it over. Fair enough. We will likely hear about the release of this or the not release of it within the next couple of days. Virtually, no matter what is decided, expect an appeal. So, if the judge says, you know what, I'm gonna go with Fani Willis's recommendation here. We're not gonna release it. Trump team will be happy with that. They won't say anything. Media will not be happy with that. They will file an appeal. It'll go up to the Georgia Supreme Court. If I had to call where that shot's going, they're gonna say nope, can't have it. However, if the judge says, I hear what Willis is saying, I believe this is of interest to the people, and so I'm releasing it. Expect then Trump's team to appeal that and say, no. If there's going to be a trial, we want a fair trial. Then again, Supreme Court, and at that point, I would say probably expect a ruling in favor of not releasing it to the public. That's just the default for the justice system. Either way, the point is I wouldn't expect us to see it. Particularly if you don't have the prosecutor saying it's of interest to the people, they should see it now, yada, yada, yada. The optimistic look at this, which I think is actually probably going to turn out to be the accurate look at it. Fani Willis appears to be building her case for prosecution. She appears to be serious about getting a conviction out of this. And I would anticipate her announcement in that timeline I gave tomorrow to end of March. I would anticipate her announcement about indictments, which she does seem to be pursuing from everything we viewed, sooner rather than later. I know it takes a long time to put together such a case, but she's had a long time. a long time for a lot of America is supposed to mean eternity. No. She's had a while to work on this. Yes, she's been moving fast, but she's been being thorough as she does it. She has shown an ability to put together cases against other folks who are powerful. She has an ability to put together RICO cases very well. So I would anticipate an announcement from her about whether or not she's going to seek indictments soon. And if I'm guessing, I'm thinking she's probably going to be seeking them. At least I hope. Do not forget, we have had all presidents who have committed crimes in office get away with it. This would be a major, major breakthrough for justice in America if D.A. Willis gets it done for us. Even issuing the indictments in and of itself will be history being made in a way that that is long overdue.